Should the Grand National be removed, retracked, RMC'd, or just scrapped entirely? Now then guys, welcome back to Dive Loop Coasters. My name is Sam, and you join me here today for this really controversial topic. Now I know full well I'm going to jump straight in front of the barrel for talking about this, but I do think it's important. It's one of those you either love it or you hate it. I do feel like the community is very split on this. You know, half of us think that it's just too rough and it needs something doing. And the other half of you think that, no, don't touch it. It's a historical landmark and it should stay exactly as it is. Now, this ride dates all the way back to 1935. This year is going to be its 90th year of operation, and the Pleausre Beach are doing a little bit of work on it over the closed season. It's got an extended maintenance period. So again, we shall see what happens with this ride. I expect a little bit of retracking work, things like that, but I don't think we're going to see a massive amount with this ride for this year. Now, the ride was actually built by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, as we know today as PTC, and that's what it's running now, PTC trains. It's surprising that this company is actually still going today, and I'm sure when they built it, it looked a damn sight better than it does today. The ride is looking a little bit worse for wear, guys. I think it's fair to say. It's not very smooth. I think you'd have a smoother experience falling down a flight of stairs. If you've got bones or a nervous system, you do tend to feel it a little bit on this ride. Again, we're not getting any younger. I'm certainly not getting any younger. So every time I go on this ride, it is a bit painful and I do come off with a headache. And I always say, that's it, never again, until something's done. Thankfully, something is being done. So again, we'll check it out when it opens later in the season. Now, this is not a new topic. For as long as I've been an enthusiast, people talking about, you know, should we remove it? Should we RMC it? And that's what we're going to go over in this video. So the ride actually gained a grade 2 listing in April 2017. You've got a few others at the park as well, such as Blue Flyer and the Big Dipper. They also received the same listing. Now the listing just refers to a structure of kind of special importance. You've also got a grade 2 star and a grade 1, but grade 2 takes up around 92% of all the listings. So it doesn't mean, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't mean you can't do anything to this structure. If you look back at the scenic railway at Margate, you know, half of that burned down. So technically with the listing, you weren't allowed to do anything to it. But, you know, this was fully rebuilt and restored to the original. And also more recently with the Big Dipper, that saw quite extensive retracking work going on. And that also, again, was a listed building. So work can be done on this. It just means you've got to jump through a few more hoops. Rather than your normal planning permission, you've also got to get listed building consent. So there's a couple more things that you've got to jump through there. But again, it's not impossible, as we've seen with the other projects that have gone on. So what does this mean for the Grand National then? And, you know, why is it even listed? This is listed because it was one of 6 wooden roller coasters that predates World War II. And it's actually one of 5 Mobius loop coasters that were built, of which 2 only stand. You've got this one here, and you've got Racer over at Kennywood. Racer does predate this one by 8 years in 1927. But again, this is still 90 years old, so it's doing pretty well for its age, all things considered. And a Mobius loop, all that refers to is the fact that the one side of the track connects to the other side of the track. So once you've done the layout once, you'll then be on the other side, so you'll do the layout again. So if you want to actually do the full coaster, you need to do the ride on both sides to get the full length. So what can we actually do then with this ride? So there's a couple of ways you can get around this. One of which is routine maintenance. You don't need the permission for this. And also doing a like-for-like replacement. So things, I believe, such as like, you know, like-for-like retracking work and just your regular closed maintenance. You don't need to get listed building consent to actually do this. The other way is that you actually do go ahead and get consent. Now, this is not impossible. For example, if this was structurally not sound and it was, you know, falling over, well, then they're going to obviously make a decision on a case-by-case basis. Surely it would make sense to change parts of this ride to make it structurally sound as opposed to fall down. So there could be a case there. Again, I don't know. I'm fairly confident the ride is absolutely fine. But, you know, I'm sure there are things that can be done, i.e., you know, with a retrack. Could you do some reprofiling? As, you know, technically that may take less strain off the structure. And this may be, you know, an argument that they could put forward. The station was actually rebuilt in 1990. It was completely changed into what we see today, where you've got the concrete and the glass. That was done 27 years before it was listed. So I think if they did that today, I think they definitely have a struggle to get permission for this. But again, you never know. You know, stranger things have happened, so let's just see going forward. So the 4 options then. So this is exactly the same as I put in the poll, and we'll talk about these one by one. So the first option then is to leave the ride exactly as it is. Don't touch it. Leave it as it is. It's perfect, you know, as the way it is. And I know some people like the fact that it's you know, it is rough. It is that kind of old school wooden coaster, and some people love it for that. So that's the first option. Just leave it as it is. Now, with this ride being, as I say, 90 years old, I don't envision that the manufacturer thought that this ride was going to still be operational in 90 years' time. So, technology's gone on, and I'm sure pretty much every part of this ride has been replaced over the years, so it's not actually original. But there is better technology now, and as we've seen, you had the manual braking on this ride. It's now got the actual automatic system, which is probably a downgrade in all effect. That's why it kind of does the 17 brake things as you come into the station, as that's just the system they've got. So there are little things like that that have changed over the years. I don't think it should stay as it is, but this is definitely an option. Option 2 then is to retrack the coaster. So this could be something, just straight like for like, a little bit like they did on the Big Dipper. And as we've seen with the Big Dipper, I'm fairly sure I'm not alone in saying that I think it was a massive success. I think the ride is a lot better than it used to be. It's very enjoyable. So that is a great option. Get something like Gravity Group in, GCI, or any of the countless other ones that they do recheck the rides, and get that on the rides. Potentially some reprofiling in there as well. A little bit like Gravity Group did there with Megaphobia. RIP, God bless it, rest in peace. If they could do something like that with the Grand National, I think that'd be fantastic. Maybe rather than having a lateral G-force there, maybe profile the track a little bit so it's not as intense as you go around. I imagine that's probably going to do wonders for the structure as well and the trains. Maybe something like that. But this again would have to go through the rigorous planning, and Historic England would actually have to sign this off. So not impossible, but again, could be an option. Option 3 then, just scrap the ride. Remove it, get rid of it. Replace it with something modern, something that doesn't cost a fortune, because I imagine this ride is probably very expensive to maintain. There's, 2 kilometres of track. It's all wooden. There is a couple of concrete bits in there, but, the structure's wood, isn't it? And you need to replace this continually. Can't imagine this is a cheap job, especially with the PTC trains. I heard somewhere they're about 6 tons. They are bloody heavy bits of kit. So this really must be taking its toll on the structure. Again, they're doing a fantastic job as it's 90 years old and it's still going strong. But I'm fairly sure, a modern kind of steel equivalent is a lot less in terms of maintenance costs. Now, do I think this is feasible? No, not a chance. I don't think we're ever going to see this ride go outside of some kind of natural event, like a tidal wave, a lightning strike. I don't know. Apart from that, I don't see this happening, because I really do not think Historic England would ever give the go-ahead to get this ride removed. I don't particularly agree with listing rides. I think it stifles progress. I think it is unnecessarily costly for the parks to keep these rides operational, but that's kind of what we stuck with here. So that's the regulation that the park has to work within. Final option would be RMC. Now, I've heard this 1,000 times from loads of people. Why don't they just RMC, just simply just RMC? And, I wish it was that simple, guys. I wish I could just snap my fingers and then RMC have come and done it. We've seen some absolutely amazing retrack works and reprofiling and just full rebuilds there from RMC. I'm looking at Gwazi into Iron Gwazi. I mean, what an incredible transformation that was, and countless others. So as much as I would love to see an RMC, and I don't think it's entirely out of the question, I do think that this could happen. We kind of fight an uphill battle from the start. It's going to be a very, very, very difficult sell to get this across the line, especially if you're, changing the structure massively. But again, I do think, it is feasible if the park want to go down this way. You've also got to think, though, that this ride is built on sand. So replacing all the wooden track and sticking a massive steel beams where the track is the structure going to hold it? Is the foundations going to hold it? Maybe, maybe not. Also, the ride takes up sod all space. If you look at it on a map, I'll put it on the screen here, it's just a little L shape. It has a really, really small footprint. When this was designed, it was designed very well. So even removing it, are you going to see much in its place? I think outside of a smaller kind of family coaster, I don't think you're going to get much in this space. And in my opinion, I think if you're going to RMC a coaster, you should probably RMC Nick Streak, as that's not listed. It's also a longer layout, and it's more kind of out and back. So I think that would work a lot better for an RMC conversion, in my opinion. Bonus option then for you all, it's one that I saw in the comments earlier, is new trains. Can we stick some new, lighter, nicer trains on this? So we did actually run different trains prior to the incident. Back in 2004, there was a fire. And I think they brought in these new PTC trains in 2006. And since then, it's really only ran the 2 trains as opposed to the 4 that it used to run. New braking system they've got. I don't know if it can even do 4 trains anymore, as you're on that braking system just as long as you're on the Oblivion brake run, so it's not particularly a fast system, is it? Potentially some newer, lighter trains might go down well. I've heard that lighter trains wouldn't get around the track though, as they need that weight to carry it around. Maybe, you know, you might be able to get some new trains, and I do think that would make a big difference, as the trains you've got now, they've changed the restraint system. So I think it used to be a single restraint system, now it's a double one, and it just kind of restricts your movement a lot more, you know. I remember riding it before, you'd be ejector out your seat, whereas now you're kind of clamped in. It's not great, if I'm honest with you. So I would like to see, if possible, new trains. I think, you know, something like that would go down really well, and I don't believe that will be affected by the listing, as you're not changing the structure, you're just changing the train. So I think, again, I could be wrong, just my opinion, but I think that is probably something you could do without getting the listing involved there. Okay, so we're going to take a look at these poll results now on the screen, get a feel for what you guys think, and then we'll talk about what I think. So it is actually quite a split. I knew this was quite controversial, and I was fairly sure it'd be quite split, but we've got 45% to 55% there. And again, that is a lot. That's closer than I thought it would be, to be honest. So quite interesting results there. The majority of people there are saying no, kind of leave it as is or retrack it, as opposed to scrap it or change it into an RMC. But the biggest category overall is actually scrap it for an RMC. The second there, just behind, is a kind of like a gravity group retrack. 19% there say leave it as is, and then 9% is scrap it with something else. Now, my opinion on this, you can't scrap the ride. Like I say, outside of a lightning strike or some kind of tidal wave, this ride is going nowhere. I really do not think they're ever going to accept scrapping this as an option. So I think that one's out of it. I'll leave it as is. Again, I don't really see this being an option because it's really uncomfortable, and a lot of people are just kind of boycotting the ride. They don't want to ride it, or they'll ride it once for the annual visit. And I've heard people, you know, people coming off it, they're genuinely quite in pain. You come off with bruises and things. So I do think something needs to happen with this. It can't be good for the structure. It certainly isn't good for my spine. So I don't really see that being an option either. Now, the RMC overhaul, unfortunately, even though this is the majority, and I would love to see an RMC overhaul, I just don't see this being an option either. I really don't think that you're going to get permission to turn this into an RMC. As much as I think we'd all love to see a Julian RMC on that site. I mean, what an amazing ride that would be for the UK and the Pleausre Beach as a whole. I just don't think they're going to grant the permission for it. I think it's going to be too different. And Historic England want to see that it's, you know, it kind of stays consistent. You know, they want us to ride the same rides that our ancestors rode. So a big RMC conversion, it's not going to happen, really. It could, but in my opinion, it's just not feasible. I just don't see it being approved. So that leaves me then with the second highest majority there at 35%, some kind of retrack. This, in my opinion, this is what I would like to see as well. It's no secret that I really don't like the Grand National. I find it rough. I find it really uncomfortable. I just do not like the ride at all. So something needs doing, and the work they did there on Megaphobia was just incredible. If I could have my way, I'd reprofile it. Rather than having the lateral forces go around the corners there, I'd have it slightly profiled, so, you know, it takes the corners just nicer, smoother. You could get, you know, nicer transitions there, and also it would carry the speed better as well. So, you know, if when you get up to the top, you kind of, you know, have it slightly go down and slightly angle to the side there, you'll retain the speed, you'll get around this faster, you'll have more air time, it'll be better for the structure. So that is what, in my opinion, that's what I'd like to see. Potentially get some new trains, but I think if you could do a retrack on that, I think that would make all the difference in the world. I'll stick a few comments on the screen now so you can see here from these comments. Love the Grand National. It can't be removed. It's in desperate need of TLC. If you're going to, you know, retrack it, RMC it. It's a part of coaster history. A lot of people do love the ride. I did love the ride. I just think it's too rough now. So yeah, if you could do something like this, I think the ride would be absolutely fantastic. So that's it then, guys. So if you have found value in today's video, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram at DiveLoopCoasters for all the latest. But from me here today with this speculation video, thank you so much for watching. Good night. God bless. See you in the next one.